Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me for my second episode of Versus. I am joined by Lyle Dixon, who, if you listen to the Art of War Unbroken podcast, I was a guest host on that episode just last week where Lyle was on there, and now he has agreed to join me on my show where we're going to talk about Tau, what their lists are like, what the meta is like for them, and then how Grey Knights and Deathwatch can play into them. I do want to first introduce my guest. Lyle is the poster child of the Art of War 40K, their coaching system.
I like to describe myself as the poster child. I don't know that anyone's actually given me that title.
I think they even called you that on Unbroken, man. And what I mean by that is Lyle started going, losing every match at every tournament he'd ever been to, and now he's top 8ing a whole lot of different GTs, right?
Yeah, I've gone 4-1 in my last 3 GTs. Lost in the finals in one of them, lost in round 2 in the most recent one, and then actually I went 5-1 the one before that, but that was a long time. That was last summer. That's how infrequently I get to play. But I did go 5-1 with Necrons. Went 5-1 with Necrons, which is like its own accomplishment.
Yeah,
so I was proud of that.
That was like, so how long ago was that? I'm sorry.
That was last summer. That was the last Lone Star Open. Yeah.
So Necrons were struggling then, and they're still struggling. But
yeah, that GW has not done them any favors. I hold out hope that since they're on the cover of next season's book, that maybe they'll get some new rules. But we'll see.
We'll see. Well, man, let's dive straight into the meat of the conversation. Get down to that protein. Where are Tau in the meta right now?
They're in my favorite place in the meta. I think they're like an A tier army. If you're going like F to S or whatever, I think that they're like an A tier. They're not as good as pre-nerf nids.
Tom is already in the comments. Hi, Tom.
They're probably not technically as good as Eldar, but like that's a really fun game, so it's fine either way. But I think they're up there. Like a good Tau player could take Tau to a large event and win. Like they're a good player playing Tau can go win any event. That's just on the table. But they're my favorite place because they have been nerfed at least enough to the point with some of the changes to Indirect and Montcon and some other things where everybody's not winning 70% of their games with Tau anymore, that's the sweet spot you want. It looks like it's about a 50 win % army right now, based on data from the last couple of weeks, but there's still good players playing a 50% win army are still super capable of competing for the championship in the tournament, and that's where I want them to be. So that's a good place.
Yeah, that's a really strong place. Like you don't want to be like Drukari where for 6 goddamn months or
like nobody even I as a Tau player knew that their book needed nerfs when it came out. So I don't think any Tau player said that they were fine.
So this is a slight deviation from my script here, but that was a great point that you just brought up, and I like to ask this question of most of my guests, and that is, when a new codex hits, like regardless if it's an army that you play or not, like would you rather it be overtuned or undertuned?
I don't know. That's a hard question because most of my armies are undertuned and I don't like to play them anymore. I don't know, man. Like I just think there's a sweet spot. I think that it's easier to nerf an army to where it's fair than it is. GW has not shown a propensity to fix armies that come out undertuned.
Mm-hmm.
Like look at Necrons as the example. They have received literal no rules updates since their codex dropped 2 years ago.
Man, you got core on some things.
Yeah,
that sure. Eye roll said it all. Yeah.
Don't get me started on that. Like Necrons have a ton of problems, and it's we got the core update to make them slightly more playable, but it's like that was the first time GW had indicated that they were willing to buff armies in 9th edition, and that's I would rather they have shown a much stronger track record of overtuning an army and then fixing it appropriately most of the time. Like Jakari are still fine. Admech's probably still fine for good players.
I mean,
Custodes
like
got wrecked.
we all know Ziegler won LVO with
Yeah, but
Admech, so
he's like his own things. Like
yeah,
you
it's
can't
true.
even like compare anybody else to him. But I think Admech's still playable. Orcs and Custodes might argue that GW balances things fairly. But like the Tau book looks fair, the Tyranid book looks like it's probably going to get a second pass, but they'll probably get it right eventually.
Eventually,
Um,
nice.
yeah.
Um,
So yeah, I don't know. I think Overtune would be my preference because it's probably easier to fix.
I mean, I'm a newer player. I started playing like right at the forefront of ninth. I got in like 1 or 2 games on TTS of eighth before the ninth book hit, so I don't have a huge like well of experience into how the game has been balanced in the back or the past.
Yeah.
But I feel that way too. Like it's probably easier to nerf something than like if you release an army and let's say the core mechanic that you tested seemed really cool, but it
Yeah.
just falls flat on the tabletop. How are you supposed to buff that core mechanic, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah,
Like GSC is a great example that they had this cool idea with like the crossfire and the I forgot the other word that goes together with those two things. Like the army built around like laying traps and having multiple models be able to get different lines of sight on things and fix it. But the problem is that army's still like incredibly hard to play, and so that as a core mechanic doesn't make it more accessible for the average person.
yeah,
So that's unfortunate because like it's just like you said, how do you make things stronger in the middle of the season or in the middle of an edition?
yeah,
I had hopes with the seasonal changes that they're trying to advocate that we'll get to that. They're talking about doing CP changes next season.
hmm
So like maybe they're going to start exploring those avenues more, which would probably be the easier way to buff armies in the middle of an edition. But as it
yeah.
stands, just tuning something down that came out too powerful is probably always going to be easier to do.
I think I've agreed from the few like I said, I've only been involved in one
Yeah.
edition, but I've been sucking up like all of that meta knowledge as
Yeah.
fast
But
as I can.
I've been playing since the end of fifth edition. I think it was the end of fifth. I don't know. I get confused. It's either in the fifth or in the sixth. But I've been playing for a bit, and this is the first time GW's ever made something stronger in the middle of the game without selling like a new book for someone to buy. Like we've had in the past, like at the end of eighth edition, we had all those. I forgot the name of the series, but there was like the war books or something. I don't remember. But there was like an expansion book, and they had a couple armies in each book at the end of eighth edition. You did a similar thing at the end of seventh edition. End of seventh was a terrible time because they clearly knew the eighth edition was coming out, so they just stopped caring. Am I allowed to
Oh
cuss on
no.
here?
Yeah, oh,
Is
yeah,
this
absolutely.
okay?
Yeah.
They definitely just stopped giving a shit with the books they were putting out at the end of seventh because that was when like the Inari book first came out and where we started getting like formations like the Gladius whatever it was and the
Yeah.
Admech cohort and all that stuff. And they just literally stopped caring about how good the rules were because they knew the edition was going away within a couple months anyway. So it's been a constant print overpowered books and then fix it, print overpowered books and fix it. I've
Yeah.
never since fifth or sixth edition, I've never once seen them fix an underpowered book like they're trying to now. So that's encouraging, but I'm not going to hold my breath until I see it work more consistently.
All right. Well, that was a great tangent. We already have some comments to please get back to what we were going to actually talk about. So that's great. I do want to remind everybody, by the way, the reason I do these lives is so that you can interact with us. Feel free to drop questions into chat at any time, and I will interject, cut Lyle off, and make him answer them. So we talked about where Tau are in the meta right now. You think they're in a really great place where they're strong, but they're not too strong. They're playing well into other top tier armies. What kind of lists specifically? Like, if you're going to like your first GT ever, maybe you haven't gobbled up every nugget of information that you possibly can. When you pull up BCP and you see that your first pairing is into Tau, other than crisis suits, what are they likely to see in a list?
So The unfortunate part is that Crisis Suits is an archetype, and it's probably the best archetype. But the nice thing is, it's probably also compared to the other Tau archetypes, the least commonly played. Because one, not everyone owns 23 Crisis Suits, and two, not everyone has the gumption to play them, if that makes sense.
They're cool models, though.
They're my favorite model, which is why I have no problem playing them. They've been my favorite model of the game forever. So we might want to put that to the side and come back to that later.
Gotcha.
Crisis Suits spam is definitely up. They're the top dog. That's just how it is. After that, there's probably 4 other archetypes you're likely to see at a tournament. So there is a Hammerhead spam list. Now this only been around for a couple weeks because it was specifically an answer on bad terrain for Tyranids to just shoot them with 4 railguns.
Yeah. Okay.
I've seen people play it before. I think it has some pretty strong weaknesses, but it is something I saw at MCM this weekend. Some people are playing it. So you can have hammerhead spam plus like a regular assortment of stuff after that. Hammerheads are pretty cheap for what they do. They're like 140, 150 points, and the long strike's like 160. So you can easily play 4 hammerheads and then still have like 3/4 of your list left, which is obviously pretty good. So that would be kind of one archetype, is build that as your anti-tank and then just have like random stuff here and there. There's the Breacher Rush list, which was really common at the beginning of the book.
The only time I was seeing Cao Yun used at like the start of a match, and only in bat reps.
Yeah. So the Breacher Rush list is based on the idea that you take 3 Devilfish, fill them with 10 Fire Warrior Breachers. You can redeploy them if you want with Cao Yun. You can redeploy 3 things if you pick Cao Yun. There's a strat for like 1 CP that lets you pre-game move like 3 Devilfish. So if you're going first, you just like move them 12 inches up the board, and then on their turn they get out, everything gets out, shoot. There's a bunch of strats to like buff the breachers, and you get to move block your opponent like in their deployment zone right away with a bunch of incredibly fast stuff, and you just shoot them like crazy. And then the rest of your army starts moving up the table because your opponent's going to have to deal with the 30 guys and 3 vehicles that are in their deployment zone, and then you just get to apply pressure and kind of pin them back, as it were.
Yeah. You get a lot of board control that way.
Yeah, you don't see that a lot anymore because it's not good. It's breachers are not very good. Like they're fine, but like dedicating that much of your list to 3 Devilfish and 3 breachers to do 1 trick on the first turn and then everything dies, not the as it turns out, not the best thing that the Tau Codex has to offer. So you can do that. It's not crazy.
Quick aside.
Yeah.
Tom wants me to ask, what is the most important character in Lord of the Rings? Not your favorite, most important.
Oh yeah, we ask this on our channel all the time.
Oh, okay.
And the problem for me now is I can't remember the answer I usually give.
It's been a long day.
I feel like my answer is usually Tom Bombadil. Just because like he's a bard and everyone loves bards.
Well, I mean, he's also like he's a MacGuffin in a way, because he can do effectively anything at any time to anybody.
My wife will remember. What is my answer normally for most important character in Lord of the Rings? I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank. Who do I normally say for that question?
I bet you Tom knows. He's already gonna call you on it.
Who was it?
Or is it Boromir?
Oh, it's Boromir. That's who it is.
Boromir.
How did I forget that? It's Boromir. If Boromir doesn't betray the Fellowship, then the entire story doesn't happen. Boromir's betrayal is pivotal to the ultimate success of Frodo. So he triggers the events. He sets off the dominoes. So Boromir's betrayal is the most important thing in Lord of the Rings.
And you triggered the darts.
Yes. So yeah, I'm just tired. It's been a long week, and I've barely recovered from MCM, so I just couldn't remember. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, hey, I should probably actually congratulate you. So for those of you who are tuning in, Lyle does all of the like shoutcasting for a lot of the Death or Glory tournaments, including Motor City Mayhem. which just ended last weekend.
Mhm.
And I have heard nothing but amazing things about the tournament, dude. Like,
It
so
went.
congratulations.
Yeah, it went exceptionally well. I was not made privy to any um, hiccups that did happen. I'm sure they happened, but our TOs are awesome. Tom and Pete are great. They also had the best fire putter outer team in the world in the history of events this weekend. It was two of our paint judges, Nick and Butters, and then my wife, and the three of them who did the paint judging. I've never seen this before. I got to give all three of them a huge shout out. They did a 180 person tournament. And they judged every single person's paint score on the first day of the event, which I've never heard of before. It
Do you
always
mean
takes 2 days.
everybody or everybody who wanted to be
Every
judged?
person.
Wow.
They
That's
hunted people down.
That's
If
a lot
they
of work.
talked to a person and they said they didn't want it, then they left. But they talked to every single person on day one, which I've never
That's-
heard of before. So I just want to give them a huge shout out because they did awesome. And then they spent the rest of the weekend just helping solve problems as they popped up, which made, as a result, a lot of problems go away very quickly, which was awesome. But yeah, it was a great event. We had my favorite moment in the history of casting on our semifinal game, which I was very proud that we managed to get that. I don't know if you've heard it, but we had hashtag 69 mortal wounds on stream.
Oh my gosh. It
which
must have been a Tyranid.
Yeah, so it was a
No way
triple
that's not Nids.
It was a triple Maleceptor list into Harlequins, which are notoriously bad against mortal wounds. And the Nid player was doing so many mortal wounds over the course of the event that or the course of the game that I just started keeping track on screen of how many mortal wounds there was. And so, we got to like 30 mortal wounds, 40 mortal wounds, 50 mortal wounds. Then we get up there to like 60, 64, 65. And I realized what's going on. So I messaged the table boss because they're like in garbage time. They're just like finishing the game. It doesn't matter. I messaged the table boss. I was like, let them know that there are 64 mortal wounds. And
He
if
needs
there's
to
a
make
way
5
to
more.
if there's a way to do 5 more, the stream would really appreciate it.
That's amazing.
So
a
they
nice
found a
amount
way
of
for
mortal
us.
wounds.
Yeah. They
Beautiful.
found a way for us, which I appreciate. So that was super fun because it's just absurd but hilarious at the same time. So yeah, it was a great event. We're I know I'm not part of the planning team for the event itself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the technology side. But I've already heard rumblings that we're looking to go even bigger and better next year, so I can't wait to see what it looks like.
It's the way it always goes, man. Once you
Yep.
show you can do it at one level, you gotta take it up at least one more
Yep.
notch, right?
Yeah. So we'll see what they can load into the chamber for that, because I'm real excited about it.
Very cool. So let's talk about Tau some more. So the strengths of that army, like if you had to pick the top 3 strengths of that army, what would they be? And I think I know what one of them is going to be from our talk on the Unbroken podcast last week, and it might surprise some people who are actually tuning in.
So there's what people think the strength is, and there's what the strength actually is. The strength, and this goes with, I didn't even get to mention this archetype, but the other archetype is triple storm surge, and that goes more with this strength than the real strength, but just overwhelming firepower. When Tau wants to kill something, they can kill it. They probably have a way to kill whatever they want to kill on a given turn. The other person can do what they want to hide, move away, stuff like that. But like when Tau get a chance to get a gun in range of the thing they want to kill, it usually just dies. Like they have that ability to just point and click at things.
Ooh.
And historically, that is the reason people hate Tau, is because they can just kill whatever they want from the other side of the table, and it's annoying because people like playing with their models. The problem is that's not actually Tau's strength. That's only the second best thing they're good at. I would argue that the actual strength of Tau is that ability combined with the blistering speed they can put into units when they want to.
That's
allows them allows them to not only kill stuff, but allows them to hunt it down in a way that keeps them safe.
Yeah, that's
they can use speed to dive. They can use speed to pull back, to stay up, play on the fringes of the gun's ranges. It's the speed that is what's the old expression? Speed kills. The speed really ends up making or breaking the list. The lists that are faster are just better.
I was gonna say mobility, but you just meant like you made it speed, and that's good. Yeah, it is. It is very surprising how fast a lot of those units in that army can move.
You can easily get 3 units. Let's see, you can get 1 unit to go 18 inches. 1 unit can go 16 inches for a CP. And then you can have a commander that just moves 16 inches if you want without advancing. So, like, and that's just 3 units. And the rest of them can move around base 10 speed, advance, do whatever. You got deep striking, you get angles. Again, you got pregame moves. The army is just full of pregame moves and redeployment. So it's just it is a deceptively mobile army for something that looks as chunky as it is.
So then we got a great comment from Thomas in chat. He says the greatest strength of Tau is that they can play 2 completely different styles at a top level with the same list, and then and then he says, or at least that's what Lyle has taught me.
That's absolutely true. Tom's making fun of me, but that is true. I've told a few people. I think we talked about it on our podcast last week.
Yep, I was gonna say. This sounds familiar.
For those of you who are familiar with Tau, if we do a minor fluff dive for a moment, there are 2 main Tau heroes. There's Farsight and there's Shadowsun. Now, Shadowsun is the ethereal goody-goody. She listens to what the ethereals tell her. She does what they want. They want to play defensive. They don't like to overextend themselves. They want to keep everybody safe. They want to take as few risks as possible. So she plays that. That's what Kalyan is we are going to wait. We're going to lure our opponents into a false sense of security, and then we're going to pounce. And when they're not ready, we're just going to take them out.
The patient
That
hunter.
is what I would call the Richard Siegler style of playing Tau, which is great. You play for the end game. You just have a bunch of durable units. You come out the end. You blow them off the table. You win at the end of the game. The other hero would be Farsight, who has basically said, "Fuck the ethereals. I don't need them telling me what to do. I'm going to go do my own thing, start my own company." He's basically the
blackjack and hookers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's the meme from Futurama. I'm going to start my own planet with blackjack and hookers.
That's Bender, by the way.
So Bender. So that's basically Tom. It's we don't need anybody telling us what to do. We're going to run out. We're going to start our own country. We're going to kill everybody and do it our way. So you can play hyper aggressive. That's the Montka, is you just run around at the beginning and murder everyone before they have a chance to put their defenses together. Both of them are incredibly powerful when played correctly. The problem is not everyone likes to commit to one or the other. Like if you look at a Richard Siegler Tau list, it is if you take a Richard Siegler Tau list and you start moving stuff around, try and play it the way Tom plays 40k, you're going to get tabled in like 3 turns. If you try to take Tom's list and play defensively, you're not going to have any points at the beginning of the game. You're not going to be able to score anything because everything's going to be hiding. So it is a really interesting dichotomy that you can literally pick which way you want to play Tau and do it effectively, as long as you actually commit to it with the way you want to build your list.
So you just talked about Siegler and you talked about Tom, but how do you play? Which way is your preferred style?
I am I am a child of 2 parents, so I have half their DNA. So I'm 50% Tom, 50% Siegler. So I am the person I'm complaining about.
Who won't pick one?
Yeah. Well, so the list I'm currently really enjoying is a list that's inherently hyper aggressive, because it's based on the way Tom Ogden's list normally look. But I just like to have a little bit of stuff where I can play the mission and not expose myself and play defense when I need to. So I have a tendency to take a few more nonsense units, a few troops, a few little 4-man units that you can just screen out or hold objectives or whatever, because what I like to have the ability to play defense when I need to. If you go all in on the aggro, there ends up not being a lot of disposable units. You're just really hoping that you punch them hard enough that they can't peel off enough layers of the onion that they really impact your score. Tom has a huge power of positivity thing where he just believes it's going to work every game, so it does. I'm an inherently skeptical person, so it doesn't work quite the same for me. So I like to have my little puppies and my little crew running around helping me out. But generally, I like to play Tau as aggressive, because when they want to, like I said, the speed is so powerful that if you're familiar enough with the way Tau move, which is where most people will get in trouble, and we're going to talk about how do people need to play against Tau. It's where a lot of people get in trouble, is that they don't understand how fast Tau is. So if a Tau player can really come to grips with the speed that is available to them, then you can just like you immediately will just see an opening on the table, like, oh, my entire army could go here right now and then delete like 700 points, 800 points, and then you just like realize that is the turn you're going to jump out. I like that, and I think that is when Tau's at its best, when it's just waiting for your opponent to make a mistake and then everything runs forward and kills them. Tom just doesn't wait for them to mistake; he just runs forward and kills.
Tom's actually calling you out in chat, man. I think I should have you both on, like have you guys just yell at each other for 2 hours while I just sit here.
Let me explain to you that it is a fruitless endeavor to try to out yell Thomas Ogden. It's not even worth attempting. Yeah.
So you have to be the patient hunter.
Sure. Yeah. And Tom's right. Like he plays Kalyan a lot. Kalyan's weird. This is getting into a little bit more specifics. Kalyan
that's great.
as
Please.
a
it's the strength of it's part of the strength of the army is that you can pick these army-wide buffs, and just that decision alone really changes the way each list plays, and that's pretty cool.
It's weird though that what I'm describing, Kalyan and Monka are fluff. One is supposed to be patient, one is supposed to be aggressive.
Well,
the problem is the ability that goes with the patient part in the book is better when you're aggressive. Because
oh no.
Yeah, the Kalyan ability, like you can play it defensive. I've used it defensively, but this is probably what Tom is referencing, is that if you pick Kalyan, there are some specific rules in the book that interact with it that allow you to be hyper aggressive if that's what you want to do, if you know you're going first, that are just absurd. Even though the rule itself doesn't really do anything until the end of the game, and the fluff says you don't do anything right away, you wait. There's a certain combination of Kalyan things that let you be crazy aggressive. So sometimes even when you want to be the aggressive one, you pick the patient ability, which is a little weird.
And it's not just throwing 3 devilfish full of breachers up the board.
No, we can throw 3 things that are much better than devilfish across the table when we go first.
That's fair. Yeah. Like the redeployment stuff is so strong, right? Like I brought this up on the Unbroken podcast too, but as Grey Knights, there's a 30-point upgrade I can take called Foretelling of Locust. It allows me to redeploy 3 core units after we know who goes first, and that includes putting them into strategic reserves. Yeah. So I can bait people out. Not to say that I'm good at deployment. That's probably actually the weakest part of my whole game. But like, you can bait some stuff out. You can seem like you're going to go up the left side, but then you just redeploy onto the right. So I mean, just that alone is super strong.
It's strong for all armies. Anybody that gets to redeploy, it's strong. The problem is there are very few armies that can do it and also move 18 inches.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's where the problem comes in. Grey Knights can do it, and it's not like it's bad. But a Grey Knight is still, under normal circumstances, only moving like 5 or 6 inches after they do it. If a Tau player goes first, if I take something that was in the back of my line and then I move it up 12 inches to the front of my line and then I move 18 inches, I just got 30-inch movement out of 3 different units for 1 CP, just for buying that Warlord trait on somebody. So it's so kind of dumb. Yeah, it's kind of dumb. Then also you add the range. Like I can move 18 inches with a unit that has a bunch of 30-inch guns. You know, like it's. Yeah. Grey Knight guns are good, but like it's apples and oranges in a lot of ways. Yeah,
they're only a few of them can actually be 30 inches, and it's only in like a special tide and all that. So, all right. Well, we just spent a lot of time talking about the strengths of the army. What are the weaknesses? What would you think the weaknesses are? And I don't mean like no psychic phase, like what, like play style wise.
So. What's supposed to be the weakness is melee. Melee is supposed to be a weakness of Tau. We have no melee units. We have 1 melee unit. He's a commander. Maybe 2 if you build 2 certain ways. But that's it. Like outside of characters, we don't really have melee units. So it's supposed to be a weakness that if you can get us in melee, then we become less good. The problem is that in practice, that's not real at all.
It's so hard to
because
just lock you guys down. Like,
yeah,
I'm glad that they made that fact where you can't stack the two anti-charge abilities. I know one's a strat. I don't remember what the other one is.
so the problem was you used to be able to use a strat like with dense terrain. So like if there was already -2 on the table, you could give an additional -2.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Which was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. -4 to a
becomes
charge.
hard. yeah,
Yeah.
it becomes hard. So it's supposed to be, in theory, it's supposed to be if you can get to us and start hitting us, we become weaker because we don't have melee profiles. Like everyone's weapon skill is 5. Nobody has AP on their melee except for characters. Like Kroot do. Like there's some AP1 melee attacks with Kroot and Kroot Hounds, but that's it. The problem is everyone can fly. Basically, everyone who's important can fly, and everyone who's important can shoot their guns in melee. So in reality, it ends up being more about like trying to control who can move where. Tau still have some ways around it. With Kalyon on turns 3, 4, and 5, you can fall back and shoot. There's a commander who can give fall back and shoot. So like it's a lot harder to do than it seems like it should be. In previous editions, if you could just touch them, then the game was over. Instead of the 8th edition, there's a lot of if you could get them in melee, then they couldn't do anything anymore. In 9th edition, that's just not true. Psychic is probably the biggest weakness that actually matters, and that there is a total possible way to deny one psychic spell in the Tau book, and that's only if you're playing Farsight Enclaves, and nobody else can. If you're playing anything besides Farsight Enclaves, you can't deny any spells. So targeted smites, indirect mortals like through Tyranids and stuff like that can become technically problematic. If you're able to put a bunch of debuffs on us or a bunch of buffs on you, like Thousand Suns or something like that, that could in theory be problematic. The problem becomes that Tau have a lot of their own buffs that they can do in the command phase. All the Tau buffs are in command phase. They may have the most command phase buffs of any army in the game. So other than like maybe Admech.
I was gonna say, really more than Admech?
it's pretty. It maybe be the same. It might be the same amount. Admech might be able to take more, but like all the people in Tau who do it have like 2 command phase abilities, and they just do both at the same time. So I don't know, but they're up there. Like they're on that similar level Admech, which makes sense because neither of them have psychers, so their buffs have to come from other places. The mortal wounds are also supposed to be a weakness to Tau, but the thing of it is that you can build into that if you want to, as all of your important units in Tau can take like. You could take up to 12 drones with 2 wounds each in your units. I've never seen anybody do that, but like you could.
Is that the shield drones?
Shield drones have 2 wounds each.
Yeah.
So if you're just like terrified of mortal wounds, you can just take a bunch of shield drones on all your units technically. And then there are some other kind of tricks you might be able to do to like you can give some of the crisis, you can give 1 crisis suit a turn, like a 5-up feel no pain, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Tau, this is the reason I love Tau, is that it doesn't really matter if you know what you want to beat, you can beat it. That's kind of just how it is. It's like the book is designed in such a way that there are answers to most things that most books can do. Now the problem is you can't do all of it at the same time. But if there's like 1 or 2 things you want to beat,
is that a problem now?
No, I that's the way I like it. I think it's better that way where like decisions you make in list building matter. I don't want anybody to be able to beat everybody all the time. But like Tau do have weaknesses that if you don't address, they could be exploited, but you could then overcorrect and build your list a different way to stop that exploitation, but that may open you up to a different one.
Gotcha. I mean, that's kind of the thing about making any singles tournament lists at all, right? Like,
yeah, that's what it should be.
Yeah, if you build any, at least like even the armies I play, like if you lean too hard into a certain play style, like let's say you bring a 10-man paladin bomb for Grey Knights, like yeah, they're really tanky, but they're also slow, and your opponents probably know that, and it's not that easy to move them around the board and keep the support that they need. Like yeah, you can gate that whole unit. But now Drago is left behind, their apothecary is left behind, right? So now you're like overextending, and while you're very durable, you're also slow, and if your opponent knows that, they can like ignore you or take advantage of that, and so on and so forth. So I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, like I said, I think Tower in a very good spot. So I love a world where list building matters, and I think they're in that point right now, for sure.
Very cool. So we've talked about the strengths, we've talked about the weaknesses. Let's talk about how we, as Grey Knight and Deathwatch players, can beat you. Let's start with Grey Knights.
Sure.
When you set your army down on the table and you know you're playing Grey Knights, like what do you not want to see?
So Grey Knights are interesting is that there's not actually anything you can do to me that I'm just like, oh, I don't have a way to deal with that with the way I play the game. There's not I think the Grey Knight matchup with Tau is very interesting because it ends up being about movement, like board control, and like getting lines of sight in a way that are meaningful but safe. Because like the ability for Grey Knights to redeploy in the middle of the game is kind of what the game comes down to in a lot of ways. Is that the Grey Knight player is going to want to be abusing gate because obviously the Tau player can't really interact with it unless they're Fireside Enclaves. So if you can get in a position where you can start gating, 10 Terminators around or a bunch of Paladins or whatever, and then you start, hitting on threes and wounding on threes, rerolling ones on the turn you come in and all this stuff with a bunch of AP, like you can pick up crisis suits. Like you can absolutely teleport into a position you can get with crisis, or you can see the crisis suits and probably delete 5 crisis shoots plus their drones. The problem is that if you do that, that unit is probably going to die, which may be an acceptable trade because you're killing a 300 plus point unit. I don't know how much Grey Knight Terminators or Paladins typically run.
Pretty expensive. I'm sure chat will let me know, but I think a 10-man Paladin bomb, they're 44 points each right now, so 440. That might be with special weapons now. I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but it's well over 400 points.
So that would be a trade down if they all just immediately got picked up, obviously. So it becomes a game of like, where can you gate that? Like you want to mitigate how much of the crackback you're going to take. Now you can get a lot of help out of that by I think the interceptors are the really fast ones.
Yep, they're my favorite unit in the Codex.
Yeah. So like what you would want to do is create a situation where you can be applying pressure and board control with the interceptors to like holding objectives or stealing objectives away, because interceptors have OBSEC, or they don't have OBSEC.
They don't. There are ways they can gain it, but they don't naturally have OBSEC. No.
So what I think it ends up mattering a lot is that you have a very fast army in a different, less conventional way, but you have a fast army. We have a fast army, and so it becomes a board control game about who can claim the board in a way that they're still safe.
Yeah. That makes sense.
It becomes like, the problem is Grey Knight's just like any other army. You can put as many defensive buffs as you want on the Paladins, and we can still kill them. Because the fact of the matter is our offensive buffs are probably better than your defensive buffs.
I'm also very good, I will let you know, at rolling ones on my armor saves. I am very good at it.
Well, the problem is you're always going to be on 4s. Because because Paladins have 3 wounds with a 4-up invuln, right?
They have a 2-up, 5-up invul.
Yeah.
But then after they get buffs, and if they're in cover, you can get them down to I think it's a -1.
Okay.
So you have to hit them with AP 6 or something to get them down to their 5-up.
Okay. If you're getting them
insane.
on that, that's fine. Tau can ignore cover. There's a lot of different ways Tau can ignore cover.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody has it in their list. So that may or may not matter. Grey Knights have armor contempt now, so that's helpful. If you're not in cover, you're going to be on a 4-up invuln probably.
Yeah, because they're with Sanctuary, the power, you can give them a 4-up invul, but they don't naturally have. They have a normal Terminator 5-up. So
yeah. So and they're only 3 wounds, right?
Yeah. I love
that's
I love how it's only 3 wounds. Like
well,
only.
the problem, yeah, the problem is everyone right now is running plasma rifles, which is a
Yep.
3 damage
Which
gun.
is 3 damage, yeah.
3
And it's
damage
not
at 30-inch range AP3. Yeah.
and it's not like
Tau,
Death Guard Terminators where it's like, oh, I hit him with 3 damage and that wasn't enough. I need to hit him with
No.
4, you know,
Yeah.
with their -1 damage.
Yeah. So the issue is, so Tau, the plasma rifles, everyone's taking them right now.
Mhm.
AP3 natively, you can get them to AP4. You can have ignore cover on them, which is functionally AP5.
Yep.
There
I was-
are warlord traits and other abilities to get it to AP6. So not everyone's going to be running a bunch of shots at AP6 all the time, but they can.
Right.
And the bigger issue is just that it doesn't matter what the save is on, even if it's on a 3-up. That still just means every failed save is a dead guy.
Yep.
So that's the problem, is that Tau have a very powerful long range gun. We're also, you can transhuman paladins, right? You can
You
transhuman any
can,
Grey
yeah.
Knight.
Yeah, it's very expensive, but you can do it.
But you would have to use it because the plasma rifle's also wounding you on 2s.
Yep.
So like it's one of those things, is like and we can give, like, you could very easily get a unit. Like I have a unit in my army right now that's 2 plasma rifles and a fusion blaster on everybody, which is a melted gun. So if I get within 9 inches of you, every failed save is a dead guy. I'm getting 15 shots. I'm going to have full rerolls to hit and full rerolls to wound. So like, I'm going to be getting +1 to hit with marker lights probably. Like, it's just, you can have a bunch of saves, but it's just still, you're still going to lose a bunch of dudes. You know what I mean?
You're drowning the opponent in very
saves they cannot afford to fail.
Like high quality shots.
Yeah. And that's obviously, for an elite army like Grey Knights, that's not what they want. They would rather, like, if I shoot you with a burst cannon, you just don't care. But plasma rifles,
true. Yeah.
Plasma rifles are bad for you, and that just happens to be the best weapon right now, based on what everybody else is playing.
Yeah, with the change to indirect fire, I know that all the Tau players I know effectively just went through, dropped nearly all of their airburst fragmentation grenades from their crisis and replaced them with plasma for the most part. I know you have some tech in your list where you have a commander that throws out like an absolute metric shitload of indirect fire, right?
Yeah, so I like running a Cold Star commander with triple airburst, and he gets a free target lock for ignore cover, and then he has a full rerolls to everything warlord trait. So against T, I specifically usually do the math on T3 because that happens to be why he's in there. So like against T3 models like sisters and elves of all varieties, he does an average of 8 wounds by himself into T3 in cover. If you took a 5-man airburst unit with double airburst each and target lock, who was also ignoring cover, those 5 guys without any buffs also do 8 wounds. So it's twice as many points or so. It's almost twice as many points, and you're doing the same amount of damage with their 5-man airburst. Now, the upside to that, I was talking to Andrew Gagne today. He's a very successful Tau player as well. He's running multi-trackers on his guys also, so that if he shoots larger units, that's exploding 6s to hit. If you shoot a unit that has 6 or more models in it. So it offsets a bit for the indirect minus to hit. And then it also, like, if you start giving them, like, you use long strike to give them a marker light, you can put a bunch of buffs on them, and then they end up doing a bunch more damage than my character. But like, you're investing a lot of resources in that, and I like how cheap the Cold Star is. The downside of both of these is that Marines just actually don't care. Like, these units are not in the game to kill Grey Knights or Deathwatch or anything. That's not why a Tau player brings them. So into a Tau player, that shooting is like pretty useless unless you happen to be bringing some kind of like agent of the Imperium that's like not a Space Marine. So like, you as a Grey Knight or a Deathwatch player, you probably just don't care either way about indirect anymore from Tau.
No, not with
that's not
AOC. AOC has made that so the indirect is a lot less frightening. Where the only reason it was frightening before was just you were drowning me in saves. Like, I had to make saves, and I can always fail my saves.
Yeah, so like my character into a Space Marine in cover right now would probably make, I think it makes you take 6 saves, but you're still on 3 up, so you're losing a guy. So like, not the end of the world.
Yeah.
It could matter at the end of the game. There's like one random dude holding an objective, and I want to pick him off. It'd probably be good for that. But Space Marine Tau Indirect is not being brought for Space Marines at this moment.
Yeah. Although I do want to quickly ask you, so how do you feel about elves?
Oh, I hate elves. I am a massive xenophobic racist for all things with pointy ears. I've explained to people my favorite game of 40K to play is against elves, even though I hate them, because either I get to kill them or I get to complain about how overpowered they are when they beat me. So like those are the only two outcomes. I've never had an elf game where I was sad at the end of it, because I'm perfectly content to just bitch and moan about elves for the rest of my life. Which
Beautiful.
huge heartbreak for me, by the way. My wife informed me during my stream at Motor City Mayhem on Sunday that our daughter wants to pick up Harlequins. And so like I don't know what the penalty is for murdering a child, but I might be finding out soon.
Well, now I'm an accessory, so I think I have to report you, or I go in there with you. I do want to say I don't think it's just like a slap on the wrist, man. I think you should definitely consider that.
Here's the problem: as a middle school teacher, I feel like I should just be aware of this consequence regardless, and I'm just not. So.
All right, so if you're playing against Grey Knights, you know and understand that this is going to come down to a war of attrition and movement, because you will be able to delete anything you want. Grey Knights don't have quite the same reliability into Tau as you have into them, because going into T5, going into 4 wounds, like a crisis suit, is like not where we want to be, even with master crafted power weapons, because we're only doing 2 damage. You know, yeah, you can be in tight of convergence to do a couple mortal wounds if you roll wounds of 6s, but I don't see a lot of Grey Knight players using tide of convergence right now, unless they bring a lot of like psi shooting, and that's mainly for the range buff, not for the mortal wounds in combat. So basically you're saying it's going to come down to terrain and movement and lots of pre-measuring.
Yeah, I think most good games come down to movement and pre-measuring and things like that. The problem is just like, my biggest problem with Grey Knights in the matchup is that you have a failure point, is that your movement doesn't guarantee go off, whereas the Tau movement is just always there. So that is like my biggest concern for someone who wanted to play Grey Knights into Tau, is that if you set up a turn where like gate has to work or you die, and it doesn't, then you die.
Yeah.
And I'm sure as a Grey Knight player, you've had those moments, and they just seem
absolutely
terrifying to me.
At the recent RTT that I took my Grey Knights to, I brought Keldor Drago because he's basically a little mini librarian. He knows 3, cast 2. You can use the 3d6, drop the low, or 3d6, pick your 2 dice, cast command stratagem, like you can do all that stuff. He still failed to cast gate in every single game that I played. Every single time.
I feel like you might need
across
to buy
3 games.
Yeah. I feel like you need to buy some new dice.
It was, oh no, it's Drago. I'm blaming it on Finecast. That's my that's my thing. But no, I mean, so what you're saying is absolutely true. Like over 3 games, you know, each game went 3 to 4 rounds. Believe me, I tried to cast gate pretty much every single round and it never went off. So yeah, but you do get in those situations where you're like, all right, you can mitigate that risk as much as you can, right? You can spend 1 CP to cast on 3d6. You can, you know, spend a CP to re-roll it. You can do all that stuff to mitigate it. And even so, the dice can just straight up fuck you.
Yeah.
Which is, as we know from Unbroken.
I don't think I could ever play a pure psychic army for this reason.
Yeah.
It's like, because sometimes this just happens.
I was gonna say, actually, when you were talking about how, you know, Tau gets so many buffs in the command phase, and then I was thinking about AdMech and how, like, I played against the AdMech like, just a few months after they came out with their codex, and the amount of gobbledygook that my opponent told me was happening in the command phase, and I'm like, okay, okay, okay. Like I kind of don't care because I can't interact with this.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
you
thinking
just
thinking off the top of my head right now. My current list has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 command phase buffs.
wow.
And I could put more in if I wanted to.
And our buffs, like you said, they happen in the psychic phase, and they can be denied, they can fail, they can go off really well and hurt us, they can fail and hurt us. You know, so it is interesting that our buffs can be interacted with as well. You know, if you can deny them, like you're saying Tau Sep, you could pretty much just turn off one power, and that power that you're almost always
you get to roll to deny. It's not even automatic. It's just
right.
You get a deny if you're
oh, it's just a normal deny roll too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, even
that's
so,
the only thing they can have is if you're
Yeah.
Farsight, you can take a relic that gives you a single deny.
Yeah. Which and if it's a relic, you're probably not taking that relic.
Yeah, well, I've seen it in lists before. It's not terrible. Especially in a meta where people are more likely to take a very common secondary pick against Tau is mental interrogation, because we usually do have a bunch of characters. So if you're taking Farsight Enclaves, you're playing twice as many commanders anyway. So like taking that just to deny specifically mental interrogation or like warp ritual or something, like you're only going to deny either something where the other person rolls like a 5 and the spell goes off, or you want to try to deny like the primary spell.
I feel that.
Like that.
Yeah. All right. That makes sense. We have a lot of people in here actively watching. I want to remind all of you that the reason I do it live is so that you can ask questions. You can haze me. Please don't haze my guest. Or do. I mean, whatever. But that's why we're here. So please, ask us questions.
I've already hazed myself enough by threatening to murder my stepdaughter on national television or whatever this is. So
national television. Wow. No, man, I'm just a nerd with a microphone and a YouTube channel. Thankfully. So, oh, your wife is in the chat right now, and she says that love of child is greater than hate of elves, and she also says that she will haze you, or that you are hers to haze. So. All right.
So here's the problem. My wife is fully aware that I don't know how to get back at people. I only know how to one up them. So engaging in any kind of hazing or prank war with me is usually not gonna work out in the long term, because I just escalate at every step. So.
Okay. There's a bunch of randoms. This is the internet. You'll never know these people. All right. So as a Grey Knight player, I need to watch out for that plasma. I need to watch out for my movement. I need to hope to God that we're playing on like WTC terrain or something, so you can't get lines of sight on me.
GW terrain's good too. It just depends on the way the buildings are oriented. If you like Tau is at its worst on the GW terrain at the opens, probably because they have walls. They do this. But the walls go almost all the way down to the back side of the square. So they're very long 3-sided ruins. Like at MCM, they're more normal-sided ruins. Like if you stand on the big square in GW terrain, like I can fly around and get an angle. But if it's just like a 12-inch wall on 3 sides, then like Marines into Tau without Indirect is actually pretty interesting, because you can play more aggressively and move up into ruins and try to move out into the middle of the board without getting shot. It is a combination of, to beat Tau, you need to be aware of what the terrain limitations on your table are. You need to understand where can you move and where can they move. Like you said, pre-measuring. Trying is hard, but trying to predict where Tau players can move on their turn is your best bet at surviving. Because if they can move where they want to and you don't get to dictate that or force them to have to move certain places to see things, then they're just going to be able to shoot you at will. And it's just, you're not going to win that way.
You're not going to have fun.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it's not easy. Easy.
And that's fine. Like I don't mind an uphill game. That's fine. What I do mind is a game where I just know I'm gonna get like sloppily slapped. Like before we start putting models on the table.
Yeah, you don't want to play on old-fashioned planet bowling ball. That's not where you want to be.
No.
If you don't want to play on a table with literally no terrain against Tau, because if they go first, you're just going to lose half your army. So
Even if they
don't
go
if
second,
you
sometimes you might lose half your army.
if you're playing your friends locally and they have Tau or you have Tau, just make sure there's actual meaningful terrain on the table.
We have a
That's the best
question
chance.
asking if Farsight marksman and sniper drones have been relegated to the dusty shelf yet again.
Okay, so here's a really weird thing. Again, the Farsight marksman is fine, but you're probably not going to see him in top level lists. He's like, but you could play him and he'll be fine. Ironically enough, the sniper drones just don't matter. You take them because they come with the unit, but you don't care about the sniper drones. What you want is the Farsight marksman. The Farsight marksman can't be shot if he doesn't move. So what you can do is you can take that unit, and then you can actually, because he's a character, you can give him a relic called O2's Lantern, I think it's called, which it says that when he shoots his marker light, which he has because he's functionally a Pathfinder, when he shoots his marker light, he can actually shoot 6 marker lights.
Woo!
So you can put him on like a roof holding an objective. He can't be shot if you never move him, and then he just sits there and puts markers light every turn. So it's not bad, especially for its cost. The sniper drones are completely irrelevant to that plan, though. But he's like a different version of like why you would take a Cadre Fireblade to like put the lantern on and do marker lights and stuff. He's a way that doesn't take up an HQ slot. He's got some ablative wounds there with the sniper drones, and he's got a little bit of tech of just like not being shot. Now the problem is everything else can happen to him. He can be mortaled and he can be meleeed, but you can't shoot him. So in certain games, that's really, really powerful. Hey, if you want to play him, he's totally fine, but you're playing him specifically to do marker light shenanigans.
Cool.
So.
Well, so I know you said before we got into this that you don't have a ton of experience with Deathwatch, but I do want to talk about Deathwatch and especially the Army of Renown, but it sounds like you're going to be talking more generalized than that. So when you see Marines, Deathwatch specifically, you know, what are you afraid of, and what can we do to combat Tau?
Here's my personal advice, because I haven't played Deathwatch with Tau. I'm not super familiar with the Army of Renown, so I'm going to boil this down to Marines, power armor Marines. All right. You should not craft a game plan that involves you needing to interact with the Tau player at all. If your game plan is dependent on needing to do anything to the Tau player, if your game plan means you have to kill the Tau player at a certain time, or you have to be able to kill them when they're in a certain place, or anything like that, your game plan is probably bad, because I don't know. Other than Necrons, I don't know if there's a list that I'm less scared to play against than Marines in general. Because like Armor and Contempt is fine, but as we've already gone over the AP that my army can get to, my army is just very good at killing Marines because most of the guns either do 2 or 3 damage, and they all usually have or can get a lot of AP. I outrange you and I outspeed you, so that's a bad combination of factors. I don't know what I would advocate to beat Tau as Deathwatch, because I don't really always understand how the Deathwatch units get put together.
There is a lot of nuance and bullshittery that goes into building a Deathwatch list, for sure. It's one of the reasons I love that army so much. But it is very bizarre if you've never built or looked at a Deathwatch list before to understand what the hell is going on with these units.
Yeah. My personal recommendation would be, step 1 would be hope your opponent is not playing Crisis Suit Spam, because I actually have no idea how you would ever beat that. If they're playing anything else, you probably have a chance. But Crisis Suit Spam, as we talked about, it skews in so many specific directions. T5 against a lot of Strength 4 guns. You have the maximum mobility. You have the maximum weapon loadouts that can do damage from a distance. I would That would probably just, I don't know how you would ever beat that. But on the bright side, that is the list the fewest Tau players are currently playing. So you may just not have to play into 21, 22, 23 crisis suits. So it's fine.
But
If
I
you
mean,
play the breacher spam, if you play the normal Tau good stuff, you're going to be able to still play even hammerhead spam. You're going to be able to play more of a normal game. So all my earlier ranting about like don't have to kill the Tau, that's specifically into crisis suit. If you are into anything else, and this is true for Grey Knights too, if you're playing the breacher spam, if you are playing Tau good stuff, Storm Surge is a little different, but I bet you probably have a better game into the Storm Surge than the other stuff. You want to kill anything that plays the mission. Don't worry about the fucking crisis suits. Like crisis suits are going to do crisis suit stuff. Yeah, crisis suits are going to crisis suit. So like a great thing if you have any kind of indirect or shooting through walls, like go after Kroot hounds, go after things that want to hold objectives so that you can force the crisis suits to have to go to other places. If you can pick up hammerheads or whatever with like your redemptors or eradicators or whatever, like hammerheads don't have an invuln, they don't have any defense at all, they're just hammerheads. So like picking up anything that might want to move to the flanks or go hold objectives or whatever, that would probably be your best chance with most Deathwatch armies. If you're playing into triple eradicate or triple storm surge, which is a fun list, but you don't see it a ton.
Holy crap! I've never seen a storm surge, so other than at my Games Workshop store, like on a shelf, I've never seen.
I got 3 that I need to build, and I'm really excited because I had an order from Spain that just came in this week, where the storm surge normally is like it just has missiles where the shoulder sockets go, and then the guns are on the back. And I ordered some bits from Spain. I don't know why my cat is just obsessively attacking me right now. Where it has arms, and that you take the gun off the back, and the storm surge you give it arms, and
it's holding it. Yeah.
Like a railgun?
I've seen that. Yeah. I do a lot of 3D printing for terrain and like bits and bobs, and I've seen those kits out there. So yeah,
I'm very excited
cool.
to build
them.
Cool. Yeah, I'm very excited to build them. I would imagine Deathwatch has more strength anti-tank shooting than a regular marine, like between like probably has like random eradicators or strength melee weapons or whatever.
So
I think I heard someone talk about Deathwatch Thunderhammers the other day.
So let me get into a couple of the little like things that the Deathwatch Army of Renown specifically are able to do. So the biggest thing is that at the start of every battle round, the Deathwatch player needs to pick a chapter tactic. They then get the chapter tactics of that. What is it? It's a, what do they call the like first 20 legion? The first founding. So if you say pick Black Templar, you get a 5-up, feel no pain, 2 mortal wounds, and you can reroll all advances and charges. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You just get both. That then lasts that whole round. If you pick Salamanders now, you can do things like turn off rerolling wounds. You know, so there's a lot of flexibility and very ability there that maybe your opponent might not be completely aware of, because you're gonna love this. So playing the Deathwatch Army of Renown is kind of like playing against Eldari in power armor. Because they have a lot of little tricks that they can do. They can fall back and shoot. They can advance and charge. They can advance and fire all their assault weapons with no penalties, blah, blah, blah. There's all these crazy things that they can do based on either stratagems or whatever chapter tactic that they picked. The other thing is, and so Sindri's right. The Black Templar are actually second founding, but you still get my point. You can also pick successor chapter traits as well, but then you get fewer buffs. Anyway, the other big thing is a stratagem that is usable once per game per kill team, and there's some other stipulations as well. It's 3 CP. All hits are automatically wounding. You don't even roll the wounds. So you can make an Indomitor kill team that has 5 heavy intercessors in it, and assault gun bolter inceptor, 4 boltstorm aggressors with the frag guns. You can put them into imp fists for exploding hits of 6. You can give them +1 to hit from a chaplain, and then you give them reroll 1s from a captain or whatever. And so inevitably you end up with something like 64 or 8 shots, and then you get exploding 6s on anything that isn't the frag grenade things. So you get around like 56 to 58 wounds that automatically just wound.
Mhm.
And then those can come at you anywhere from AP 0 to AP -1.
Yeah. Quick question, just to make sure I'm on the same page. The unit you just listed moves 5 inches, right?
No.
I thought the stuff in the Gravis armor moves 5.
It moves Gravis. Is it 5? I thought it was 6. It doesn't matter. So there's also a relic called the Beacon Angelus, where you can move your character, which is, and it is 5 now. Yeah, 5. So what you can do is you stick that on a Primaris chaplain on bike. You rush them up 20 inches. You can then pull that team to you. And the only stipulation is they have to remain outside of 9 inches, like a deep strike, and they have to be within 6 inches of the model that called them to it. So you have a lot of mobility there, and then also Deathwatch has a teleportation stratagem, so you could just leave them in deep strike till turn 2 if you want, which helps offset a lot of that bad mobility.
So let's pick one of the Tau archetypes we've talked about, and let's talk about how that could work into that. I think because there's different answers for different things.
Sounds
like which archetype would you like to posit this Deathwatch list into?
Well, the scariest thing to me is going to be shitloads of crisis suits.
Okay.
Obviously, the Indomitor team picks up 1 crisis suit, team.
Yes,
you still have to deal with 18 more.
the question becomes, though, which team do you get to kill? Because the way, and this is, I don't want to make everyone, I don't want it to sound like Tao's like an unbeatable monster, because it's clearly not. But the Tau crisis suit list is just so much better than the other lists in a lot of situations. It's not, none of them are perfect, but I personally think the crisis suit list is far and away the best. The problem is the crisis suit player, if they're any good, are going to know exactly which unit they need to kill you, and they're going to make sure that's the one you don't get to kill. So I have a 4-man bodyguard unit that has 1 of each gun. It has 1 burst, 1 cyclic, 1 plasma. So if I want to push out your screen to make sure you can't land within 9 inches of everything else, that unit's going to be the one I throw forward because it's the most disposable. So there's also, and it's a hard trick for you're gonna have a hard time pulling it off turn 1 also, because Tau has a lot of Kroot. There's usually a couple units of Kroot in every Tau list, whether Kroot or Kroot Hounds or whatever, and they have a 7-inch pregame move. So even if you're going first, they're going to be able to push that screen back 7 inches from the deployment zone line, which compounds that issue as well. Because the Tau player doesn't need to beat you on turn 1 or 2; they just need to not lose.
Right.
Because the Tau list works best when you have to make a move and then you get to react to it. If you do that to kill a bunch of, you wouldn't, but if you do that to kill a 4-man bodyguard unit that's 250 points and a couple Kroot and Kroot Hounds, and then I immediately kill that chaplain and that entire 10-man unit, I'm going to imagine I'm probably ahead on that trade. So that would be the problem, is that you have to figure out how can you leverage that awesome murdering ability that doesn't just immediately pick up that resource. And now you're playing down another 200 points or whatever.
Yeah, and I know that we're talking completely hypothetical here, and we don't have a board on or terrain or whatever. That stratagem does not stipulate that you have to fire at 1 unit. So
I'm just imagining that
I could split fire to 2 different ones.
Yeah. I'm just imagining a Tau player is going to be able to move things forward in such a way to push that screen back that you're not going to be within target range of the other crisis suits anyway.
Right. I got you now.
Just because of the speed, that being able to move 10 inches allows you to really control the other person's deep strike bubble.
Yeah.
That's just,
And being able to move and then shoot and then move again
yeah,
is
that's powerful too.
crazy good. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
So it's like if you're playing a triple storm surge list, you could probably, if you have 3 units that do that in your army, since storm surges can't be obscured, you're probably just picking up a storm surge every turn.
Mm.
Which is great, especially because you can shoot storm surges. If you're playing on the right kind of terrain, you might be able to shoot them and they can't see you anyway. You don't even have to expose anything. So like that's the huge liability of the storm surge, is that if you're playing that list and you play into something like yours where I have a way to do an obscene amount of damage to anything, no matter what it is, then they're going to have a lot of trouble, even though they are T8 with a 2-up, 4-up.
Yeah,
that's a different issue. The Breacher Rush list, or the Tau Good stuff, which usually still plays maybe 1 or 2 Breachers fish in there.
Breacher
They're going
fish.
to be, they're going to be throwing everything forward and trying to pin you back, and then go out and establish, beachheads on these objectives that you're going to have to spend a turn killing the throwaway stuff anyway. And then by the time you can come out and shoot them, they should be pretty well hidden from you. So it's going to take you longer to dig them out. So that's going to become
Makes
like
sense.
in that phase. And it's true, anytime you play against someone who's trying to do that kind of like board control of like move blocking you, you're going to have to find a way to not only deal with the move block, but you've got to find a way to get around it or get past it earlier than the move blocking player wanted you to do. So if your trick is kind of dependent on getting 10 people somewhere, you're going to have to look for not only how do you deal with the move block that's there, but how do you open up a spot for your next couple turns? Because like if you just react, this Tom always yells at me about this, because this is the kind of the stage of the game I'm currently dealing with or trying to get better at. If you just answer what's on the table on your turn, then you're not necessarily creating a winning position for the rest of the game. So it becomes an issue of looking at, okay, not only do I need to deal with this move block now, but I need to put things in the right place so that next turn, in turn 3, they can get where they need to go, and I'm not 1 turn behind, and then I miss 4 points on primary and I lose the game because of that. So that there's different problems each of these tile lists can throw at you, which is fun.
I love this. Like, this is why I'm having this interview, is because as a new player, there are armies out there I still haven't even played. I haven't played Guard yet. I haven't played Chaos Demons. Oh no, that's not true. I played them at LVO with my Grey Knights, which was awesome for me. Not so much for them, but it was awesome.
Don't Grey Knights have like a strat? You just like reroll everything against Chaos Demons or something?
No, it's a tide. So we get to pick Tide of Banishment, and then our whole army gets to reroll all 1s to hit and 1s to wound. It's pretty good. Really, really good. Yeah,
that sounds good. Yeah,
it's good. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, there are entire armies out there I have not played yet. And I'm sure if I thought about it more, I could, name them all. But like,
I haven't gotten to play against new Tyranids yet. Like all my understanding on new Tyranids is by watching other people play or talking to people who have played them and trying to like get some communal learning. But I just haven't had a chance to play against new Tyranids yet.
Yeah, so. I've only played against new Nids once, and it was a player who hadn't played in 9th until that tournament. And then he brought a list that had a lot of stuff that he liked in it. Like, he straight up says, like, look, man, this is not a good list. This is stuff that I want to play. And I'm like, cool, man, I love that. Like, play what you want to play, dude. I beat them barely, but that Maliceptor,
Maliceptor's real good.
Oh boy.
Real good.
Yeah. So Sindri is asking, does that make, and I think we've already talked about this a bit, but I don't think he was in the chat yet. He says, does that make Dark Angels, like all Terminator armies, with their permanent transhuman? Is that something that you're worried about at all? And I would say no, because as we already said, against Grey Knight, like Paladins or Terminators, you're gonna hit me. You're gonna blast me 30 times, hit me 15, wound me 10, and it's gonna be well, I guess you'll wound me 7 in that case with the Transhuman. Every failed save is a dead Terminator, though.
The problem also is you're giving not nearly enough credit to the hit rolls. So like you're right. Like, in theory, Transhuman should be good against Tau, right? The problem is I have a unit where every failed save is a dead dude. I can shoot you at a distance where you can never charge me. You just can't. And I can do it while re-rolling everything. So like I'm gonna if you played I would table I'm confident saying I would table 40 Deathwing Terminators by turn 3. They would all be dead by turn 3. If they weren't all dead, it's because I didn't feel like I needed to kill them. Like if you had a unit doing Stubborn Defiance in the back and I just killed the other 30, I would probably just leave the other 10 alone because they can't bother me anymore because they can't move because they need Stubborn Defiance. So who cares?
Yeah.
It against armies, Salamanders is probably harder than Deathwing Terminators because you can give them Transhuman and no rerolls. That's probably a lot harder to kill. But they're less likely to be spamming invulns and 2-ups and things like that. So it's different. The issue is anything. So like here's my best example of how extreme it can be.
Salamander? No, salamanders can't transhuman their Terminators because they're firstborn.
I was saying you can have transhuman things that you can't be rerolling.
Oh, against. I see. Okay, yeah. I got you.
Yeah. The best example is that I have against playing durable Marines is I played against Thousand Suns with my current list, and he was playing 20 Scarab Occult Terminators plus what was it? I think the list was 20 Scarab Occult Terminators, 15 Rubric Marines, 60 Splitting Horrors with summoning points, and then Bellicor, and like normal Thousand Suns characters. And I still tabled that list in 4 turns. That was a close game. I only won that game by 1 point. There were turns where I didn't kill the Scarab Occult Terminators as fast as I thought I was going to, but I also could have changed what I pointed my guns at. But I don't think I still tabled 20 Scarab Occult Terminators in 2 turns. I don't think Deathwing or Salamanders are as durable as Scarab Occult Terminators. I think the maximum durability you can get on a Marine is Thousand Suns.
Yeah,
and I can still kill them in 4
are just insane because
yeah.
Now I'm gonna butcher this, so chat or Lyle, please correct me. But so what they can do is they take your 2 damage guns or your and they can make them 1 damage. Then they can use whatever stratagem or ability or whatever to get +1 to their save. Is it +1 to their save if they're only taking 1 damage?
Basically, yeah.
And then they're effectively ignoring because they're already on a 2-up. So they're already effectively ignoring -1 AP from armor of a contempt. Then they're ignoring another AP effectively. So AP -3 is now bringing them to a 3-up, assuming they're either not in cover or they are in cover and you're ignoring it. So you're
put
like
them in cover.
yeah, but I'm saying with Tau being able to ignore cover, right? Like you have to hit them very hard. And then they've also now halved your damage output for any wounds that do get through. So your 2 damage air bursts are now 1 damage, and they get +1 to their...
only 1 damage anyway.
Oh, right. What's the...
Cyclic?
Is it the
Cyclic? Cyclic is normally good in time because you make Cyclic Strength 8 2 damage, AP2, but then they pop the -1 damage strat, and the AP2 basically doesn't matter at that point. Like it's basically AP nothing once they do that. So the Cyclics end up just making them take saves on 2s. The only thing that really matters into them is Fusion and Plasma, which you can get to AP 4 or 5 respectively. But that is, again, you're devoting a lot of resources. The Thousand Suns can also make Scarab Occult Terminators -1 to hit, I believe. They also have an ability to res Terminators. They have their own magic version of an apothecary.
Yeah.
So it's layers upon layers of defense.
And then Cult of Time can bring back 2 Terminators every turn and stuff. Yeah.
If you roll high enough, you get 2 guys instead of 1 guy. Yeah.
And then with the sorcery points, they can make it automatically roll that high and stuff. It's very It does seem very it's a very complicated army, but it seems like a fun one to play. If you're into chaos.
Yeah. But like I said, I killed 20 of those guys plus Bellicor in 4 turns. So I don't have a lot of hope that a Darkwing Terminators is like, I don't even mean to say this.
Darkwing.
Deathwing. Darkwing Duck, yeah.
Yeah. Let's get
Deathwing
dangerous.
Terminators, someone needs to do that conversion.
Just a whole bunch of duck faces on the Terminators.
Yeah, Deathwing Terminators might be the one thing in the game that I'm least scared of that's supposed to be good. I have a teammate who's played them before, and I've seen them played on stream. It's not just my experience with my teammate. But there's so many ways to beat Deathwing Terminators that don't involve even having to kill them. And I can actually kill them. I'm pretty sure I could beat a Deathwing Terminator list without shooting a gun. I think I could do it.
Just because you're just so damn fast.
Because I'm fast, and I can pick a bunch of secondaries that don't need me to kill them. It might be hard to max primary without killing them, but I could get pretty close, depending on what they chose to do. Because I'm just always going to be able to run circle. They're never going to charge me ever.
Earlier you were saying that Tom has the power of positivity, and you've come off pretty confident in this interview, man.
This is not positivity. This is just understanding basic math. Like, they move 5 inches and I move 10, so like, I can always just, as long as I never end a move within 12 inches of them, then they're never going to catch up. That's just how it is.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, all right. It is what it is. Like, I'm not trying to sound disrespectful. They're very good. Tom played Dark Angels for a while, but he played the fast stuff.
He played all the Raven Wing stuff?
Yeah, he played a bunch of Raven Wing stuff.
Nice.
And I want to reiterate, when I talk about how great Tau is, I'm specifically talking about Crisis Suits, because that's what I'm playing and is what I think is really good. As we laid out, there are 4 other types of Tau you could play, and they would all have their own problems or strengths against these other armies. I would venture to say the other ones are far more likely to struggle with Deathwing Terminators than my list, because they don't have nearly the volume of reliable, efficient, high damage shooting that my list has. Like, you might have some hammerheads that can kill 2 Terminators with 1 shot. Storm Surges have no tricks against Deathwing or anything like that. They're just re-rolling everything as their basic plan, but they don't re-roll wounds. Tau good stuff is going to be, move blocking, playing the mission, but you're not going to be spamming any type of weapons or anything like that. So, again, beating Crisis Suits is really hard. Beating everything else gets significantly easier.
Huh. What an interesting piece of information, because I did not. Yeah, I've only played the new Tau a couple times, and it's mainly Crisis Suits that I've been playing against. So
I think most lists would probably have. I know other good players are playing 10 Crisis Suits, and some combinations of characters and hammerheads and just other stuff. So I think seeing 15 is not uncommon. 15 plus maybe 2 commanders, so 17 total. Seeing 10 or 12 is also probably going to be relatively common. Once you start hitting the 20s, that's the list I'm talking about that you're not going to see a lot. I don't think you're going to see a ton of people at normal events running Crisis Suits that number in the 20s. Because, like, my list counting characters runs 22 right now. So.
Wow. Is that so? If you think that it's so good and it's so durable, then what's the tech for these other groups, like these other lists? Like, why are they teching away from Crisis Suits? Is it just a gameplay style? Is it?
I think there's a couple reasons. One, not everybody owns nor wants to buy 22 Crisis Suits. 2, Crisis Suits are an investment, and if you mess up, then you just lost 300 points. That's just how it is. And if you're not really good at movement, or not, you don't have to be really good, but if you're not above average at movement, then you're going to find the ability to put them in a spot where they're going to die pretty easy. It's Tau Crisis Suits are all about pre-measuring, and if you understand movement, like the perfect example is we're talking about the Deathwing, right? I know exactly how far Deathwing Terminator goes.
Yeah.
And so I know exactly how far I have to go so it can't touch me. Or it can't even declare a charge on me. Like, once you start internalizing these ranges, it becomes a lot easier to keep your Crisis Suits alive. But if you just play them as like, I'm going to move forward and stand on this objective and shoot you, well, then you're probably just going to die. Because, like, you're still just on an objective in the open. Yeah. And so that's where it becomes problematic. It's not everybody knows how to not play that way. Which, you know, we've seen recent data saying that Tau tournament results have gone below 50%. We've seen them in the 47 to 49% in some of the recent weeks. They're still winning tournaments. They're still winning, I think, an average of 3 to 4 large tournaments a week, and placing in more tournaments than that. But their win percentage across the army in tournaments is hovering in just under 50%. And I think that has a lot to do with it, is that you have a lot of people playing Tau that don't understand movement as being as pivotal to the army's success as it actually is. They think it's just guns, and it's not just guns. It's guns that move. And if you don't move them correctly, you're going to struggle. And I think that's why you don't see the crisis suit a lot, because it really leverages that specific fact that if you can abuse movement, then you will do well. If you don't understand how to abuse movement, then you will struggle with that list.
Yeah. For those of you with the military background, you need to shoot, move, and communicate, right? So Tau can shoot and move, and then the communication is instant because you're the one playing all the army. So like, you're already communicating. Now, whether you're like me and you don't pick up on the things that you're seeing or doing, you know, that's a skill problem. But so we do have another question as well. With the Knights book just hitting, Chaos, Imperial, or otherwise, I know that you one-shot Bellicor with Long Strike in a, was it a one-shot, or you just like finished him off?
I did 12 damage to him, but I think he had I think he's got 16 wounds or 18 wounds. Like, the Long Strike made it easy to kill him in one turn. I killed him in one turn once I got to shoot him.
But Long Strike's going to make it easy to kill Knights too, right? Like, are you worried about Knights in any way?
Yeah. I mean, the short answer is no. The long answer is I haven't read any of the books.
Okay.
Well, my understanding is that the Chaos Knights are better than the Imperial Knights. And the Chaos Knights probably do more things that I would not like than the Imperial Knights. The Imperial Knights, I think, are just like, they need to get into the middle of the table. They need to be aggressive. They either want to get to the middle of the table or they want to charge me quickly. But they're still just a T8 model with a 4-up invuln.
I thought they all went to T9.
Did they go to T9 in the book? They had always been T8 before.
Chat will let me know. I think across the board, at least the big Knights all went up to T9.
If they're all T9, that's fine.
The small Knights, I think, might be T8 still, but chat will let me know. I haven't looked at any of the new stuff either. So, yeah.
If they're T9, fine. I still don't know how much it matters.
Yeah.
Because I can outmaneuver them. I can abuse ruins. I can shoot them through ruins, and they can't see me. So those are all problems.
Titanic is a hell of a keyword.
Yeah. I still have, regardless of what they are, I have a bunch of T8 weapons, and I can get +1 to wound. So it doesn't actually matter what they are, because I have Talsep. So as soon as they fail a save, the rest of my army gets +1 to wound against that model. So that's a big
and they're
deal.
only gonna have like 8 models. So
yeah. So I happen to do a lot of chunk damage as long as I can reroll. Now, the Chaos Knights, I think, have the ability for one of them or some of them at different parts of the game to turn off rerolls. So that's more annoying. But once again, I'm a lot faster in the ways that matter. Like, they can move fast, but like, I can move lots of things quickly, and I can go lots of places at once. I do have the ability to, I do have railguns if I want them. I don't know if I need them.
Yeah. That's fair.
Like, if they're not T9, then I'm not scared at all. If they're T9, then I guess that would be kind of annoying. But like you said, they only have a couple models, and I can get my entire army +1 to wound when they shoot them. So yeah, that seems good. You can always take railguns. That
seems good. Yeah. Yes.
You can always take railguns. Like think about like a burst cannon. If they're T9, a burst cannon is already wounding on 5s no matter what. So if I make 60 shots wounding on 4s with full rerolls to hit and wound, it doesn't matter if you have a 3-up save or a 2-up save or what. Like, you're still just like, from 60 shots that are no AP, you're still just gonna take damage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, you're just gonna be drowned.
Yeah.
Drown.
I haven't played against my understanding from people that have read the book is that the Chaos Knight one is not one to be scared of. I'm sorry, that the Imperial Knight one is not one to be scared of, and that Chaos Knight might be slightly more annoying, but I haven't heard anything that anyone's like freaking out about from the Tau side.
So I am looking at the data sheets now. Looks like the small knights are still T7. Knight Abominant is T8. War Dogs T7. Desecrators T8. No, looks like they're all still 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Chaos Knights have in the past. I don't know if they do in this book, but they have a way to make one of them T9 for like a turn or the game.
Maybe that's where I was. Misunderstanding.
I think in their previous codex, Chaos Knights could make the big ones T9. They could make all of them T9, but you had to take D3 mortals every turn when you did it.
Yeesh.
So every turn you wanted to be T9, you had to take D3 mortals. But I don't think Imperial Knights have ever been able to get a T9. But if they're T8, then no, I'm not very scared because I'm wounding on 4s and I can get +1 to wound, and I have a bunch of high chunk damage weapons. So
yeah,
it
fair.
is what it is. Yeah.
Well, I mean, this was supposed to be versus Grey Knights and Deathwatch, but it is cool to talk about all the new stuff.
Well,
that's
your Grey
out,
Knights and your Deathwatch, they can all take a knight now. So
that's
you
true.
want a knight in your army,
Yeah.
you can get one.
I do have a Knight Paladin that I've been meaning to paint up in Forge World Demos colors and run them with my Grey Knights just for giggles, not because I think that's particularly good, but I think it would be fun as hell.
I don't know which one it is, but I'm like mildly interested in just jamming the one that can do like 16 mortal wounds into a list because I think that's hilarious.
I don't know which one that is.
So there's one of them. I can't quote things right now because I don't, like I said, I don't have the book. There's an Imperial Knight that has a combination of warlord traits and stratagem. I don't know which one's which, but one says if you roll a 6 to wound, all of your damage turns into mortals. And then there's another one that says if you roll a 6 to wound and you have D6 damage, or no, I think it's just once a turn you get to pick. It does this. But if you have a dice amount of damage, like it does D6 or D3, you just automatically max.
Oh.
So there's a gun that does D6 plus 8. And if you roll a 6 to wound, you can just use the strat to make that do 14 and then turn it into mortal wounds, which I think is hilarious. I don't know how reliable that is, but I think it's adorable and I want to do it.
I mean, if it's a low shot gun, then wounding on 6s probably isn't super reliable.
I think it has. Yeah. I think it has 2 shots, but still, not. You shouldn't like bet on that, but it's not so infrequent that it will never happen. You know what I mean?
For sure. All right. Well, I've got a couple more questions for you, and the first one is, what is your favorite game ever with Tau? I think I'd like to keep it related to 9th edition, but if you have like some really crazy stories, I would love.
No, all of my Tau stories before 9th edition are terrible because they involve me complaining about other Tau players. I don't know if because you're new.
Yeah.
Have you heard the horror stories of 7th edition?
I know in 5th Grey Knights were stupid. They were. Insanely good. And I know at the Asana 8th, it was all about Iron Hands, like vehicle spam and stuff. But
8th was great until the Iron Hands book came out. The whole edition was super fun for the most part. There was various problems that came out, but it was like for like 6 to 8 months before the Iron Hands Codex, it was like the best 40k meta had ever existed.
Wow.
And then Iron Hands ruined it.
Your wife is in chat and she's talking about that one time you almost made her quit 40k.
Yeah, that happened.
The first time she ever played. Wow, dude, you didn't even pull punches on a new player?
You need to send me the picture, Heidi, so he can put it in chat for the world to see. We have a picture of this game. I think she's gonna go find it. We have this picture, it exists. Her first army we got her was Tau at the beginning of 8th edition. And I was playing beginning of 8th edition Blood Angels, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but at the very beginning of 8th edition, you could put any amount of your army in Deep Strike. There was no limit. And you could Deep Strike on turn 1. And you could Deep Strike anywhere you wanted to.
There wasn't a 9-inch bubble, like...
I don't There may have been a 9-inch bubble, but you could like deep strike in their deployment zone on turn 1 if you went first.
I mean,
so she was playing Tau. You send it to me on Facebook, so I could send it to him and he could put it on there. She was playing Tau, and I was playing Blood Angels, and I just put like 1,500 points in reserves and just T1 deep struck her on her first game of 40k ever, and she did not have much fun with that game. And we have a picture for feelings that I'll be glad to send you.
Like, oh man, I can't think of very many people who would be like, yeah, that was fun. Love to die right away.
So the problem was it was both of our first games of 8th edition, and I was just excited to try something. And I normally play Blood Angels. I'm historically a Blood Angels main. And I was just excited to try something fun for Blood Angels, and I didn't really process how it would make other people feel.
Oh man.
So that was the thing. And her rolls were bad. That's true.
Blaming the dice. Watch out.
I know you're trying to be more positive about this. But let me send you this picture right now.
All right. I'll see if I can't pull it up.
I do enjoy complaining about Tau from 7th edition, because 7th edition was the worst 40k has ever been, as far as I'm aware. That's my wife during the game where I was teaching her how to play.
Oh wow, yeah, she looked very, very happy. Here, hold on. Let me pop this up into chat for y'all so you can see this. She's very pleased.
Yeah, this is not a happy face. Yeah.
Trying to zoom in. Oh yeah. That's the year. That is the you're gonna pay pay for this later face. 100%.
It absolutely was. There's no argument about that. But yeah, we always go back to that picture because it's so clear what feelings are occurring in that picture.
Looks like annoyance and hate. Yeah.
Again, we had I
love the heart.
I had spent months hyping 40k to my wife. The reason she got into it is when we started dating, she lived here in Detroit and I lived in Charlotte, in North Carolina. And so we would just like do the thing that all like, mushy new couples do and like fall asleep talking on the phone or whatever. But like at a certain point you run out of stuff to talk about. So my wife wanted me to like tell her stories so she could fall asleep. She just wanted me to talk while she fell asleep on the phone. And so I ran out of stuff, so I just started telling her all the battles I knew from the Horus Heresy. And she just like gradually fell in love with the 40k as I just like told her all the fluff. So like she had been real hyped to start 40k. She'd been really excited, and then I did that to her.
Yeah. So you guys, you hyped her up. You got her to buy an army. You guys painted it, I assume, or
no,
at least partially. No, okay. No, like base coats or anything. You're just plastic.
We don't wait to paint models to play them in this house. My wife is an exceptional painter. She is like in the top 1% of painters. I think maybe not. She's not like Golden Demon because that's like the top 1% of 1%. You know what I mean? But my wife is like an actual like top 1% painter.
I think she's probably making that face again right now. Like
no. She this is the one thing she would not argue with me about. But the problem is for her to paint like that, it takes a while. So we don't wait for stuff to get painted.
Gotcha.
We go play with it anyway. What I was saying about 7th edition, I don't want to forget this. You may not be able to process this, but in 7th edition, we had this thing called the Allies of Convenience chart. I don't remember what it's called.
Oh, I've seen this chart. Yeah.
There was a matrix of what armies could be allies with what other armies. And the way it worked.
And the poor Nids could be allied with nobody.
Nids could be allied with nobody. But everyone else, you could build an army that had two of those armies together. So you could have an army, you were allowed to legally play an army that had Space Marines and Tau together. Now, the rule was if you had a certain symbol where that crossed on your table, you could not end a movement within 12 inches of each other. Like you were just prohibited from getting close to each other because it was supposed to be you didn't trust the other person enough. And so the truce was you're going to stay away from each other while you did this, but you could be in the same game. So what ended up happening in 7th edition and all the good lists is that this is back when formations came out and each book had a couple formations that gave you certain abilities or whatever. Well, Tau had one that was just 3 Riptides. And so what ended up happening is everybody just had 3 Riptides plus the rest of their army. So you would play against Tyranids that had, or not Tyranids. Tyranids had their own thing. But you play against Eldar with 3 Riptides. You would play against Space Marine with 3 Riptides. You would play against Admech with 3 Riptides. Everybody had 3 Riptides, and it was obnoxious. And it's the reason most people hate Tau now, because it was terrible back then.
I do remember hearing about Triptides and how annoying that was. Yeah. Triple Riptides, Triptides.
That's just where it came from, is that literally every single tournament list started with 3 Riptides, and then you did the other 1,400 points. And it was obnoxious. So those are all tied for my least favorite games that Tau was involved in. Is any of those games.
Well, I mean, the question was, what's your most favorite game?
Right, but I'm a negative person by nature, so I had to start there.
Okay. I mean, like, I guess I should rephrase that question, because I'm sure you've had games where you just absolutely like slap somebody or whatever. But like, you know, the games I really like are the ones where you win by a point or 2, maybe 3 points. You like eked out that win at the very end, or like I played one game where into the new Tau where my buddy's shield drone made like 14 4-up invols in a row or something, and we're just like, that's incredible. You have to put like a little mark on that drone forever, because he just like took 15 plasma shots from a bunch of Hellblasters, you know?
Yeah, I want to be clear. I love Tau and I've played them for a long time, but I haven't played them a lot recently. I've only gotten to play like, I don't know, 20 games with Tau this edition. So like I unfortunately don't have a plethora to pull from. I did that Thousand Suns game I was telling you about. That was super fun because it was a 1-point game. Even though I tabled my opponent on turn 4, I still only won by 1 point. So that was really fun to see a game come down that close. I had a game against Eldar where I tabled him on turn 4 and I got 100. And that was the game where the Eldar player told me how impressed they were with how fast my army moves. So that just made me feel good, because anytime I can make an Eldar player like complain about my army, it just makes me feel special. So I was down for that. I'm trying to think. It's kind of what you alluded to a little bit. It's hard with Tau sometimes, especially with my list, where if you're trying to table the other person, you don't want to make them feel bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like a fine line to walk. And unfortunately, I don't feel like I have a ton of experience in this edition with Tau, where I have games where I've made sure both of us had a good time the entire time. You know what I mean? Like, that's something I enjoy doing. Like, I went to Adepticon and I was able to do that. Like, even when I crushed people, I made sure both players walked away. It's like super fun.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
like the game was super fun.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting challenge with Tau. Is trying to make sure. I would say the closest game a game that was close and both people I feel like really, really enjoyed was that Thousand Suns game. That was a 1 point, even though I tabled him and then had a whole turn to move around and score points. I still only won by a 1 point, which is like, for tournament players specifically. And I don't know how much your audience is tournament, how much of theirs isn't. But for tournament players, anytime you can get a really close game like that, those are always super fun. Just like a single point.
This is a pretty competitive-minded channel. I'm mostly talking to tournament players in my interviews. So
yeah,
other than some hobby stuff, it's really very like tournament. So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was super interesting from a tournament standard. Is one of the, like, I don't know if a regular lay person would have enjoyed that game, but I think 2 tournament players going at it in the last round in the X and 1 bracket, trying to make like top 4, top 8, that was super fun to do.
Yeah. And your wife has a great point, and I've already updated my outline. The question will no longer be like favorite game ever. It will be most memorable game ever, because your wife's face in that one photo, it's pretty memorable.
Yeah. As far as the 7th edition goes, I apologize if it was negative. It's just like 7th edition was just like, for me, the lowest point in the history of 40K. So I just have to explain that to people anytime I get the opportunity. It was not fun. I'm so happy how far we've come from 7th edition.
Yeah. I was talking to my coach. I'm being coached by Ben Sherwin, and he's been playing forever. And he was talking about how, like, yeah, as bullshit as some of this ninth ed stuff seems, like you know, he's like old man Ben, and he's like, explaining like we used to wait, months or years to play with broken shit. You're like,
they didn't used to fix it. They just put it out and said deal with
yeah.
Their line. I don't know if you've ever heard this before. Their company line used to be when people would complain about how bad the game was, they would say, "Well, we're a model company, not a game company," and then they would just ignore you.
I have heard that. I'm never quite sure how much I believe that, but I didn't live
for
it.
real. That really happened. Yeah, that was a real thing. That's not even an exaggeration. That's a quote.
All right, so I'm gonna get into my last question, which is a reminder to everybody in chat to please ask us questions. But what is your favorite? And I guess we already hit this at the very beginning by accident. What's your favorite Tau model?
Oh, I love crisis suits.
Yeah, we already hit that at the very beginning, but we'll say it again.
I love crisis. Like, and it sounds. I don't want to sound like it's a meta chasey thing. I love crisis suits in the fluff. I love the idea that they're this like completely flexible unit that the Empire puts out there. No matter what the problem is, it's like, all right, just put the guns on them. We got guns. Figure out what they need and send them out there and solve that problem. And they're constantly just equipped with whatever the exact answer for the problem is. And then they go out and deal with it and they come home. Yeah. I love the idea of like a unit of soldiers that is like they don't have a specialty. They're just like jack of all trades. So whatever the problem is, you give them what they need and they'll go solve it. Yeah, sure. Like Deathwatch has always been cool to me. Like I've always liked the idea of Deathwatch. I've just never played them. But I like that. I think someone in chat said it, that crisis suits are the Deathwatch of the Tau Empire. Like the entire organization is just, all right, whatever the problem is, we have a gun that solves this problem. So just give it to them and send them out there.
Yeah, super versatile. That's actually one of the things when I picked up Deathwatch, because I was coming from Grey Knights, I had like, everybody gets a Stormbolter in Grey Knights, you can upgrade a heavy weapon here or there, whatever. You get to pick from one of 3 melee weapons. I pick up Deathwatch and I'm like, the combination of ranged weapons, heavy weapons, melee weapons, other stuff like storm shields. I was like, this is insane. This is absolutely like, and that's why I was like, I guess I'm magnetizing everything now, because there's no way I'm going to go build 400 Deathwatch veterans that have every combination of every weapon I could ever want.
Yep.
That's not
exactly,
happening.
I do the same thing with my crises. I'm looking. I don't think I have any out right now, but they all have 4 magnets on all of their hard points.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all.
I love playing them so much. I'm not willing to buy 50 of them. It just doesn't make sense because I want to use them all the time. Yeah, so like these are our current little boys. They have no guns on them at all. They do have propellers on the back because they're underwater.
Nice.
But they have we don't
are those Lego propellers?
No, I 3D printed the propellers.
I'm just fucking with you.
Lego propellers, that may have saved me a bunch of trouble because they're probably less likely to break than the ones I 3D printed.
Yeah.
So maybe I should look into that.
Are you resin 3D printing?
Yeah. So like we do bases and little bits and stuff like that. Yeah.
So there's some pretty cool new, really flexible resin out there. Or I mean, really flexible, meaning far less brittle than the stuff that you're probably using. Because that's the stuff I use. It's super brittle.
Yeah. So
it's
we're using
awesome,
the 4K
but it's
resin.
brittle. Yeah.
We're using a 4K resin, which we have. I think I mentioned it earlier, but my entire army is underwater themed because I just found a really cool story in a Space Wolves Codex that I thought was awesome. So I made my entire army about that. But like we have like giant seaweed that we printed,
awesome. Yeah.
which is super great because like this has a little bit of give, so I'm not like terrified that it's gonna like snap off when I like accidentally brush it with my hand or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy with like some of the resin that's out there. Like as long as you don't like overcure it or whatever, like you can do some cool stuff and don't have to worry about just like destroying it the first time you touch it. So that's really nice because I have resin, like even this resin, the really good flexible stuff. If like we've overcured it like by 5 minutes before or something, and then you like touch it and it's like
it shatters.
It's like it's like the old horror movies where like it's like Buffy, you stake the vampire and just,
All right,
So-
Lyle. Well, we've gone through all of my topics of conversation. We're nearing that 2 hour mark that I told you we would probably hit. We have 14 people in chat right now. I don't see any new questions. I'm going to give everybody a couple more minutes while I ask you, now that Motor City Mayhem is behind you, what's next for you personally for your next tournament? Like, where are you going? And I assume you're going to bring your Tau.
Probably. Well, somebody's Tau, maybe not my Tau. The current plan that we've developed in the last like 48 to 72 hours is we had enough people on. So I'm a member. Not only do I cast for it, but I'm a member of the Death or Glory competitive team with Tom Ogden and Brenton Weiss, and we had a bunch of guys who like top 8'd MCM. We had Monik Gudamani and Joshua Minich and trying to remember who else was there. Sam Ramuni, or sorry, Joe Ramuni.
I think. Nope.
Jamie Beaton was one of our newer guys. He did well. So we have a bunch of competitive players, and we currently realize we have enough people that want to go do the American Team Championships that we can make 2 teams.
Oh shit!
So that's probably the next big thing.
So that's 16
like
guys. Is it 8?
Teams of 5.
Oh, it's teams of 5. Okay, I thought it was teams of 8.
No, that I think World Team Championships is teams 8, but
Okay.
American Team Championships is 5s. So that's probably the next big event. Maybe hopefully some smaller stuff to like, make sure we don't get rusty before then. But the next big one will probably be ATC in July. And then I'm going to go do a narrative event at Nova at the end of the summer, which I'm really excited about. I haven't ever done a narrative event before. But back before COVID, for the last Nova they had, I had not yet kind of fully immersed myself in the competitive scene. So I had signed up to go to Nova and be a warlord in the narrative event, and then it got canceled. And so now that it's back this year, even though I'm like I'm pretty into the competitive scene now.
Yeah.
I still I feel like I missed this thing, and I just want to see what it's like.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go do this narrative event and just kind of check it out and see how it goes.
So actually, you know what? This conversation reminded me of something. I'm going to be doing a 2v2 team tournament here in like 2 weeks. My teammate will be actually bringing Tau. I'll be bringing Deathwatch. It was so it seems like I'll be bringing the melee hammer and he'll be bringing all of the shooting, but I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Team tournaments are sweet. I haven't played a ton of doubles, and usually when I do play doubles, my wife is my partner because we do some fun stuff together hobby wise, which is neat. But I've always heard people say between doubles or like team tournaments like 5v5s or 8v8s or whatever, that team is just like the most fun way to play 40k. Like it's 40k in its purest form. So anyone who's never had the opportunity to do team tournaments of some sort, I highly recommend them because it's just the best way to play and hang out. Because like at that point, you don't even really care who wins that much. It's just like playing and hanging out with your guys or your girls or whatever, and just having a good time and spending time with your friends. And that's really what 40k is all about at the root anyway. So
and that's actually interesting because back when I thought I was gonna go to the Seattle Open, and it didn't end up working out for some like real life stuff, but Tacoma's less than 2 hours north of me, so I was like, yeah, I'll go. But I was actually gonna do a team narrative, like Crusade style game with a friend, mostly because I'd never tried a format like that before. I mean, I've done Crusade, it was okay, but like I've never done like a narrative game that's like actually has a storyline that goes through the whole weekend, and you go play like 6 games, and it seemed really cool. I was like, I'll try out, like maybe that's a format I really love, and I don't know it if I don't try it,
That's kind of how I feel about this. I have not played. I think I did a narrative event when I was like a fledgling 40k player, like 10, 12, 13 years ago, however long it was. Like my first event, or not even my first event, but like back when you're like buying things on eBay just to get as many models for as cheap as you can and nothing matches, and you're just playing at the local GW store trying to learn the game. They had like one of those like summer campaign type leagues. They had like the old tiles on a map, and you would like move around, and if you ran into somebody else, you had to play them, like fight for resources or whatever. And that was like a different thing because it was over months. But I think that's the only real narrative experience I have. So I'm really interested to see what it's like you said, like a cohesive event that's telling a specific story over the course of 3 or 4 days. I think it sounds really interesting. I may end up not preferring it to tournaments, but I feel like I want to just give it a shot and see what it's like.
Well, I'm glad that we are on like the same page about that, because I mean the 40K community as a whole has been super welcoming, like just amazing community. I've had very few poor interactions, even as a content creator where I'm throwing out my face and my stupid ideas all the time. People are very supportive usually. But there's definitely a line in the sand that seems to be there between like a competitively minded player and a non-competitively minded player. And it seems like you're in one camp or the other, and to straddle the line seems like it's almost impossible, but I want to try anyway.
Yeah. I don't even know what it was, but like I remember a few weeks ago there was a whole big thing on Twitter. I just happened to get on one day and I saw there had been like some big argument of like narrative players and 40K and competitive players are both think each other is stupid or something like that. So like I don't know what that rift is, but I'm sure it's not necessary. Because like I feel like they both like I appreciate the idea of both of them, so I can't imagine that they would need to be exclusionary for each other.
Exactly.
So
all right, man. Well, I think I'm gonna go make dinner and hang out with my wife, who is also very supportive of my hobby, although she has no interest in playing. So thank you very much, both of you, for being on my stream. Thank you to everybody who joined. And stand by. I'm going to reach out to Brad Chester and see if he wants to do one of these for Eldari. I think that would be really fun.
Look, right, all I warn you, Brad. First of all, Brad Chester will probably say yes as long as he's free, because I don't know that he may be the only person on the planet who likes to just talk 40K more than me. But I will also warn you that he is assuredly more of a rambler than I am. So you just need to be prepared for that.
That's okay. I mean, like, you know, we hung out together at LVO. Like, I've talked to him a few times now. I think I can at least, I don't think I can contain the Brad, but I can focus. I can focus the Brad, I think. Yeah. But I don't think anyone can contain the Brad. So
no, absolutely not. I would agree with you on that.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for showing up. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz. I know you hate to hear it, but it really does help me out. And stand by for more content. I am working on so you want to get started with Deathwatch video series. I'm still working on my Grey Knight Brotherhood redesign stuff, and I have I'm figuring out the studio in my garage so I can do monthly bat reps that are live. So
sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Well, if you haven't done it yet, I'm pointing at you with my seaweed, if you ever want to do a versus video on Blood Angels, you let me know, because those are my one true love. So
yeah, man.
I'd be glad to talk about the Sons of Sanguinius for you as well.
There's always content in a game this deep. So all right, I will let you go. Thank you, both of you, and to everybody out there, don't forget, call your mother.